In this video we're going to talk about recall, and to start with we're just going to have a look at equipment, because equipment's really important when we're doing recall. It needs to be strong and it needs to be sturdy and it needs to be right for the size of the dog. The reason for that is because if the dog decides it's going to go for a run or it's going to run away, so it's going to go after something in its environment like a rabbit or a child running around or something like that, we don't want to be pulling on the dog's neck. The reason why we don't want to be pulling on the dog's neck is because it can cause injury. So what we do is we put a harness on, and I've got a long line. So the long line's very thick and sturdy, and the harness is right for the weight of dog. What we want to make sure is that it's not going to slip around, so it has to be well fitted. It has to make sure that it's tight enough so that it doesn't slip, but it's not too tight so it restricts movement. So the clip on the lead needs to be nice and thick and sturdy, because a dog this size is 38 kilos. If he decided that he was going to go for a run, it needs to make sure that it doesn't break or snap. The harness itself is of nice thick webbing material, and it's tight enough for it not to be able to slip around too much, but also it's not too tight that I can't get my hands in. So equipment's truly important when it comes to recall. So the other thing we need to think about as well when we're doing recall is the type of treats that we use, and the treats that I'm using today is home cooked liver cake. Now the reason for that is because it needs to be a really high value reward. What we're doing is we're actually asking the dog to come back to us in an environment that can be ever changing. So out here in this field we can maybe see rabbits, or we could see deer, we could see other dogs, children, other people just mooching about. And actually what we want is for the dog to want to come back to us and not pay attention to what's going on. So the reward's truly important. Also the size of the reward is important as well. For a big dog like Shadow, you would think big treats, but actually, because we're going to be rewarding him a lot, we don't want to fill him up. Okay, so we don't want him to feel too full so that he stops coming back to us. So the treat size is really important. Also, we need to make sure that the treats aren't too dry, because if the treats are too dry, he's going to want water, and if he wants water, he's going to maybe stop coming back to us because he's going to go seeking for that. So this is nice moist cake, which I made, and it's got liver in it, and so therefore hopefully he will find this really interesting. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to show him what I've got. So I'm just going to let Shadow know that I've got some really good tasty treats in my pocket, so that he understands that when he comes back he's going to get something really nice. Good boy, good. And by doing this part of the exercise, I'm actually getting his focus on me. So we're stood here in this field, and actually he's not looking at anything else other than me. Good boy, good. Good boy, very nice. So he really is interested in what I've got and what I'm doing. Now the point when we do any sort of training is we want to set our dogs up to succeed. And by doing this part of the exercise, straight away we're setting him up so that he knows who I am as his handler. So when I start to move away from him, he wants to come with me. And as you can see, I'm just rewarding him with my voice as well. You know, I'm telling him that he's a good boy, so he understands that what he's doing right now is what I want him to do. Okay, it doesn't look like he's doing much, but actually he's doing a lot, because he's here with me. He's not searching in his environment. He's actually just stood looking at me and paying attention to what I'm doing. Good boy. Very good boy. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at how we actually start the recall. So what I would be inclined to do is just move away from him ever so slightly and ask him to come with me. So I'm not going to attach the cue just yet. So my cue eventually is going to be Shadow come. But actually I'm not going to say that just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to move a few strides away, letting my long line go so that I'm not putting any pressure or tension on the harness, and I'm just going to encourage him. Hey, good boy, Shadow. Very good. Shadow. And once Shadow understands that part, and we've repeated that many times over, so we're talking at least 20 times, so that he truly understands, what I'm doing when I move away from him, we'll then move on to the next part of the exercise. So the next part of the exercise is attaching the cue. And so I want my cue to be shadow come. So when I shout his name, he looks at me, and then the next part, which is the come bit, he actually then knows to bring his feet to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move away from him ever so slightly, again releasing the lead because I don't want to put pressure on the harness. And I'm just going to go backwards and I'm going to say shadow come in a really nice encouraging voice. Shadow, shadow come. Good boy. And again, when he's completed it, I'm going to reward him. What a good boy to come. Good boy. Okay. What I also need to make sure that I do is that I release Shadow as well. So once I've said Shadow come, and he's done what I've asked him to do, I then need to make sure that I release him. So the release cue basically means that you can then go and do what you want to do, but until I say that, you just stay with me. So I'll go through that again. Shadow come. Good boy. Good boy. Okay. Good. So the okay means that you can go off and be a dog and you can do what you want. You can go and sniff, you can go and have a wee, you can go and do basically anything. But until I give you that release command, you actually just stay with me. And what that basically means is that he then has to just wait to be released, and that I can just be very sort of calm in my approach with him. And if I want to clip him back on the lead, I can. So if I then want to go home, we can then clip back on the lead and off we go. The other thing we need to make sure that we do in this part is we need to make sure that we do some collar touching. The one thing that dogs actually get used to is that when our collar is touched, that we're going to have the lead put back on and we're going to go. So that basically signifies end of fun. So what I'm going to do when I call Shadow this time is I'm going to touch his collar a little bit and reward him so that he doesn't get used to the collar being touched as part of end of fun. Okay, so we'll go through that again. Shadow, Shadow come. Good boy. So I'm going to touch his collar. Good lad, what a good boy. Good boy to come, good boy. And then I'm going to release him. Okay. Good lad, good boy. So what we're actually aiming to achieve is that in this video that the dog actually wants to be with us and stay with us, even though the environment can be quite interesting. So then when we move it on to the next stage, which is letting him run free, but still with the lead on, we actually want them to just keep looking in at us. We want them to keep clocking into us so that actually when we move on to the next stage, he already knows who we are and what we're expecting of him, but it's just at a greater distance. But you would keep it exactly the same. So I would come to this environment with the same equipment on, maybe some different treats, but they still have to be high value. And I would use exactly the same cues. So I would say, Shadow come, and I would also encourage him to sit as he came into me. I would touch his collar and I would still release him. So those things are truly important. We don't change too much in any one session. Good boy.